Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Cord. I'm here with Jonette Biebensheimer, and tonight is a special night. We are going to be speaking on EHS, Electromagnetic Hypersensitivity, and the work that we've done over the last near decade. But first, we have to get a little housekeeping out of the way. These statements and comments have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This information is for educational purposes only and includes recent advances in research in micronutrients and our company, Dr. EMF. Engage, the micronutrient company, does not claim that our products diagnose, treat, cure, heal, or prevent any diseases or injury. Engage's products do, however, address our deficiencies and provide our bodies with the nutrition we are lacking. The reason I dropped a little Dr. EMF in there is because this is going to be a different call than our normal Optimal Longevity series. So we're excited to get things rolling.
We are. Thank you for the intro. We'll share screen. And whoops, I apologize, everybody. I got to take us through the beginning. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Okay, I can't get to the top. Well, it's just about, it's all right. I'll just start there. The first slide was just our night, which is the EMF Hypersensitivity Awareness Day. And we really wanted to talk, just show pictures of Dr. Cord, ourselves, and Kaizen, our EMF Hypersensitivity Service Dog in the right-hand corner. And then just pictures of Dr. Cord and Dr. Prasad and Dr. Prasad and myself. And we've been a part of Engage for a long time, 8 to 9 years. And it's really been life-changing for both of us personally. But we wanted to start there.
It's actually 2015.
I can't. There we go. All right. So I can't see the screen, so I'm going to have to. Okay. It's not letting me do that very well. It's all right. EMF hypersensitivity. What is it? EHS Day started on the 10th of June in 2020 to bring awareness to millions of individuals who are suffering from EHS around the world. EHS are those individuals who have increased sensitivity to their electrical environment, which could be mobile devices, routers, Wi-Fi, smart technology, electric cars, electric beds, commercial airplanes, lamps in the bedroom, cell towers, power lines, on and on. Our world is electrified. EHS individuals have been told for years that this is a psychosomatic mental health issue. And we are here to say tonight, it is not. We've been measuring many aspects of EHS for nearly a decade in your clinic that did primarily TBI and concussion work. So we're here to tell you that this is untrue. All right, what are some of the symptoms that people that have electromagnetic hypersensitivity have? And this is really important, okay? Because there are hundreds of millions of people suffering around the globe. And it wasn't that long ago, 8 to 9 years ago, when we brought this up because we were measuring and we were seeing these concussion-like symptoms without a physical trauma. We were like the tip of the spear and we kept on seeing them. So why don't you talk about some of the symptoms that you have seen in your clinic, but in overall, these are some of the symptoms for EHS.
Well, and I think, Jonette, and this just came up while you were speaking, we had a patient named Amr who really helped us to learn and progress faster forward because he was so sensitive that we had to move things around the office that were plugged in because he could feel them.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things that happened is that when he was in the hyperbaric, he could actually feel the oxygen concentrator when it was near his head. He could feel it, that generator. So we actually moved that to the opposite side, which is reducing your exposure. So that we did that a lot in your clinic. And so we'll get to actual clinical experience, but I think that's a really great example that he really did teach us a lot along the way.
And, being some of the first in this and really we were pioneering it, discovering it, and making changes. And that's part of what I do as a chiropractor, and part of what I do in functional neurology is look at the situation and then adapt to it and make changes to help people. But the symptoms that we were seeing were symptoms that I saw a lot in people that were concussed. For instance, dizziness is a huge one. A fatigue and brain fog that is unlike concussion. The fatigue is overwhelming fatigue, and the brain fog is that you actually feel your brain slowing down and becoming more confused, more foggy. We saw a lot of eye strain and dry eyes, irritated eyes, and pupil reflexes were in what we call a sympathetic overdrive. So instead of, if we remember back when we had cameras, not on our iPhones, but when we actually had a camera, it had a shutter. And your pupils, when the pupil is black and it's big, that means that you're getting more information into your brain. And when it's small, that means that your nervous system is working correctly, and specifically cranial nerve 3. So we were seeing people I was seeing people that had both pupils wide open. And that was something that I saw in concussion, but these people didn't have concussions. Headaches and migraines that wouldn't go away.
So they were more sensitive to light also.
They were much more sensitive to light. If the pupil is wide open, then they're sensitive to everything. And imagine looking at your phone, or it's like looking at a Samsung television or one of these new 4G, 5G, the super TVs with binoculars. It's too much information into the brain. And that's why these people would get such headaches and brain fog and migraines. We also saw that when they were getting too much information into their eyes and into their brain, that they'd also develop heart palpitations. And we'll go into
your story later.
My story later. Anxiety, go ahead.
Don't forget headaches.
Yeah, headaches are huge.
And migraines.
I mentioned it multiple times. Anxiety, this is a big one. Agitation and irritability. Have you ever known anybody who goes off just like that? There might be 2 or 3 people talking, and then all of a sudden this person's like, could you just stop talking? And they're super irritable in a way that makes no sense at all. Well, you've got to look at electromagnetic fields that might be driving their system. And we're going to go into that in just a second. And the last symptom, which I would say 99% of doctors miss. And they miss a lot of these symptoms. But this symptom, almost everybody misses. And that's insomnia and sleep issues. We don't look at sleep and how sleep affects the brain, how the brain is affected by sleep.
Hang on, we do. We're certified in sleep.
We do. That's what we do. But that's what we're trying to teach others, and that's going to be a big part of this call as well.
So take a screenshot of this if you haven't. So I know that you have family members and friends that have some of these symptoms, and I want you to know there is hope and for resilient health, and we're hardwired to heal. So I want to say that before we move on. All right? Here we go. Now, we're going to talk about you, Dr. Court. So Dr. Court has not seen the slideshow for everybody on here. And
shooting from the hip.
Hang on. We didn't even tell people about us. So why don't you tell them a little bit real quickly about your 40 years of medicine and what you've done up to date?
All right. I've been in medicine for 40 years. It went like that. I started my senior year in high school. I was given the keys to the ambulance. And the second half of my day in high school was being able to roam the hospital in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Because I had done so much work my junior year in high school, I was given the opportunity to go anywhere in the hospital I wanted to go. So I spent a lot of time in the emergency room. I spent a lot of time in surgery. I got to go to autopsies every week. I had carte blanche to go wherever I wanted to go in our hospital and learn. I worked in emergency medicine for a decade, and then I became a chiropractor, and I've been working as a chiropractor. And in 2010, I made a sharp left turn into functional neurology, and I've been studying functional neurology and how the brain works and how we can change the brain utilizing wakeful activities and
now restorative
sleep. And this has been a really interesting journey in the last 10 years that you and I have been working together in functional neurology and how we work with electromagnetic hypersensitivity patients, because I have news for you. All of us are electromagnetic hypersensitive. But some of us, like myself, I have been feeling the effects of it for a long time.
So real quick. So I'm a biochemist, and my graduate work is in environmental science and policy. I have been a contractor for both the Department of Defense and Department of Energy, running very large programs and also being an inspector. So I've been around mixed and high-level and low-level radioactive waste and chemical biowarfare.
The nastiest stuff on the planet.
That was my previous life. So I have a lot of experience with environmental law. And then I'm a breast cancer thriver. And the last decade has really been focused on the science of how we heal. And so that's why we're here tonight. And so let's now transition to your childhood health. He hasn't seen these slides, so he's going to have to roll with it. This is really important for everybody on here. Why did I put this? Because these health issues that he had as a child are precursors to his EMF hypersensitivity. So you may have some of these or your loved ones. So it's important that we address these, and practitioners should be looking at these. So why don't you walk through these for people?
Okay. It's true. I haven't seen these at all. So, what we're going to talk about is our exposome, and that's a big 75-cent words for the beginning of time when you were a baby. So
even in the belly.
Even in the belly now, because so many moms don't realize that having a laptop on your stomach when you're pregnant is a really bad idea. In fact, one of the books that we read suggested that just an hour with a laptop on your lap for a male can kill 25% of their sperm. And, Dr. Prasad and I have had the conversation about, can a laptop on a pregnant woman's belly damage the cellular structure, and can it also affect that babies? And so we really need to look at what we call digital hygiene, which we're going to go into later. But these are the things where we have to go through the exposome. I didn't have that. I was born 58 years ago. There were no computers except for, NASA. But I did have, I was very sensitive to my environment, even as a child. I was allergic to ragweed and sagebrush and dust and pollen and mold and mildew and, all kinds of environmental toxins, so much so that my parents decided that it would be a good idea to give me allergy shots, one in each arm, twice a week. Now, that went on for 8 years until I finally put my foot down and said, no, I'm not doing this any longer. But how much mercury and aluminum, thimerosal, and other chemicals do you think were put into my little body as a child from 3 until 11 years old? Then at 7, and I was a typical boy, fell off of stuff, hit the ground. But at 7, I had a concussion. I got a concussion ski racing, injured my neck, and my brain, even though I was in a gifted class, many things happened. So I was in 2nd grade. I was in a gifted class. I was already writing cursive, and I got a concussion, and I got diagnosed with a broken brain. And they said, well, your brain is moving so quickly that we need to slow it down. So we're going to put you on Ritalin too. So allergy shots, Ritalin, and then to make matters worse, we're going to put you back into 1st grade. and then put you into special ed. And all of these things put me on a course where I didn't really care if I lived or died or not. And so there were 5 other concussions and lots of broken bones and things like that. In addition to that, I was a childhood snorer.
Very important.
And this is super important because even my son was a childhood snorer. And most parents don't spend a lot of time checking on their children in the middle of the night to see if they're snoring. But I want you to think about the back of the mouth for just a second. When a child snores, it's like a tarp on a pickup truck, and it gets weaker and weaker in the back of the throat. And that piece of skin in the soft palate starts to vibrate and will continue to vibrate through their entire life. To make matters worse, when we have our teeth pulled, our wisdom teeth, that makes the tarp wag even more. And then for children that have braces, when we band the teeth, we bring the jaw back like this. Can you see me?
Yeah.
And that also obstructs the airway. The allergy shots we've gone over.
But snoring is really suffocating for everybody in here. It's hypoxic. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's really important because people that have EMF hypersensitivity, they're hypoxic. Okay. And that's very important. So go ahead.
Both Jet and I hold certificates in sleep medicine, and Jet constantly is researching sleep and the different aspects of sleep and what we can do to help people with their sleep. But this childhood snoring is a huge thing, and adult snoring is even a bigger thing because it's like being suffocated, and that leads you into down another path as well.
You were electrocuted.
I was shocked a couple of times really hard. And what we're finding as we treat patients is that that's a commonality that we're seeing that I don't know if anybody's even looked at except for us. But I was bitten very hard by electricity one night coming home from an ambulance call. I had been in the Colorado River most of the night. And my parents didn't have a cover on a switch that had 2 switches. And in my days at 4 o'clock in the morning, I stuck my finger between the 2 switches, and I was soaking wet. So that was a really hard electric shock. And then I've also been very close to now, as of being in Texas, 2 lightning strikes, very close to 2 lightning strikes. And I think that has a lot to do with our sensitivity as well.
And the last one, which is very personal.
And then the last one, I've been partially paralyzed twice. The first time I was 18 years old. It was April 1st, 1985. And I got a fight with a guy that was about 100 pounds bigger than me. And it lasted all of 7 seconds before he broke my neck. And he broke the spinous, the little sticky out part at the 3rd vertebrae in my neck. And I got to spend 3 days in a very interesting situation, paralyzed from my shoulders down and told, you'll never walk again. But they were wrong. And I'm grateful for that. And then I had a doctor inject my spine, my low back. And he hit some nerves and paralyzed my foot. So it's still paralyzed part of my leg. And sometimes when you see me walk, you can see that I limp. And that puts undue stress on the body. So when we have injuries, that's all part of the exposome. I hope this was helpful. Woo! You know what, though? Here's the best part.
Resilience.
I'm resilient.
There we go.
And so are you.
Okay. So we want to talk a little bit now more about clinical experience with EHS. Okay. And in 2015, we missed a slide about your burning of the hands. Did we miss that slide?
We could talk about it in a minute. Just
okay. 2015, Dr. Court started seeing a lot of concussion-like symptoms without a physical trauma. And we were measuring with EEG, balance, gait, vision processing, pupillary reflex, cognition, HRV, sleep, microbiome. We're looking at all these things, but there wasn't a physical trauma.
When you say EEG, we're talking about brain waves with an EEG machine that Jet runs, and she would tell me different parts of the brain that I needed to look at. Balance is a huge part of what's going on with people with EHS. They lose their ability to walk appropriately. Their pupils are blown. Their memory is scrambled. Their sleep is disturbed. And it even goes down to their poop is dysfunctional.
Well, and that heart rate variability, their ability to be resilient, the space between each heartbeat is they're not very resilient. Their
heartbeats are irregular and not consistent, and we measure all of those things. Jet, you move so fast that sometimes we've got to slow it down and explain a couple things.
And so that was the experience he saw in the clinic, and we had a case study, and we've been measuring for quite a while. But Dr. Court and I presented in 2023 a 3-year EHS case study at CU Boulder at a brain summit last year. And it was very important because we were really in front of mostly neurologists, and we used the same measurement that most neurologists use. And so this was a really important case study. If you want to hear this person's story, his name is Ryan, and you can Google him on YouTube and look up electrician and EHS hypersensitivity, and you can see his story. So
it's also on the Dr. EMF website.
Yeah, it is.
So you can go to dremf.com. We're rebuilding the website, but the video is still on there.
It is. But you could hear about his story. That's what we presented. And he really came to us, and to make a really long story short, he came to us in a wheelchair at 41. And he was an electrician at Intel, and he was diagnosed with vertigo and depression. And Dr. Court and I did a full comprehensive baseline on him and took him as a patient. And he's been on the micronutrients the whole time. But the very first thing you said was, you need to get off all your technology. And so long story short, 3 years of data, we actually had many things we measured, but we did 40 EEGs, 125 HRVs, and 40 balance trackers. And his balance was horrible. It was the bottom 3% for his age group in the largest normative database ever collected for balance. And when I presented that section, which is my section on that, I put the raw data on with all the timestamps. And it's really important that he went from the bottom 3%, and then he really improved to 70%, 75%. And that wasn't good enough for Dr. Court. Everybody else in there would have been happy with that. So he continued. In year 3, he actually came up with some strategies, and he's now at 93% on his balance, which is unheard of. And then it stuck, and then he just maintained it, which is incredible, because his number one issue was being dizzy, and he had balance issues. But his EEG, really a 64-year-old brain, and he really, by the very end, his very best score was a 21-year-old brain. And that's impressive. But most importantly, he's resilient. Even though he's very sensitive to his electrical environment, he was resilient. So when we presented that case, it was only 15 minutes, but it was the mind blower. And the reason why it was the mind blower is everybody suspected in the audience, right, that electrical fields and EMF are affecting and causing something, but we really came to the table with 3 years worth of data. And the reason why is that in 2023, concussions, which are mild traumatic brain injuries, MTBIs, now have added infections like mold, Lyme, strep, staph, long haul COVID, and other infections, as well as toxins such as heavy metal. And we brought to table EMF exposure as the toxin to the diagnostics. So now neuroinflammation is caused not only by physical trauma, but by infections and toxins. So when we presented this, it was a pioneering moment for these neurologists, because we came to the table with something of a 3 years case study showing that we can really help people get better. And that's really what this is about.
But the other thing that blew him away was that, Ryan worked at Intel for 10 years, and he drove up to work and couldn't get out of the car. He was what we call functionally impaired. He could think, but he couldn't move. He was just almost, it's not paralyzed, but he's impaired to the point where he couldn't do anything for himself. And they took him to the hospital, and anxiety is a huge part. The panic of what's going on with me is overwhelming to people with EHS.
And you've gotten hundreds, if not thousands, of people calling that are just panicked.
We've worked with a lot. I mean, I've even talked to people who have built aluminum capsules to sit in and things like that. I get all kinds of calls from all over the place. But with Ryan, day one, I walked down. I'll never forget this. I walked down, I opened up his door because they were so late. And he was just sitting there like this. And he just looked at me and he goes, "Do you have a wheelchair?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Can you carry me?" And I'm like, "No." And then I'm like, "But I got an idea." So I ran up and got an office chair and dragged him up. But Ryan couldn't walk. And this was a Friday night. When he came back Monday, I dragged him up in the chair. And by Tuesday night, he pushed the chair down. And by the end of the week, he was doing 70, 80% better. And at the end of the month, he went to Disneyland to be there with his children. And, we had to make some modifications, but he did it. And now he's doing great. And even the anxiety is under control.
All right. So next slide. And so Dr. Court's personal, they're going to now hear your dirt on how this all came about. I think you could add Radiation Nation on there too. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you came about understanding that you had EHS and walk through the timeline a little bit, because people on this phone call need to know that they have loved ones and they know people that have EMF hypersensitivity symptoms.
Right. Well, my world in the world of the cellular industry, I actually worked with some friends in Australia in 1987 and brought cell phones into Australia. And you and I were talking just a couple of months ago, and you were asking me questions. How did I feel, almost 40 years ago, 37 years ago? How did I feel when I was in Australia? And it was the first time that I started thinking, wow, when I was in Melbourne and we started with cordless phones and then progressed up to cell phones, I was exposed to lots of radio frequencies and cellular frequencies. My brain felt like mush. It was challenging to do the work that I had to do. It was challenging to work with my hands and install, and challenging for me to even speak to people in Melbourne. But when I was in other parts of the country and I wasn't selling cell phones, I had no problem. But it wasn't until 2 months ago that you said that I realized that I was having symptoms back then.
And you didn't put it together.
And I didn't put it together. I just didn't put it together. So I did that for a year. And then in 1999, I had a Nokia phone. I had just graduated from chiropractic school, and I was in Oregon, and I couldn't decide which hand I wanted to hold the phone with because both hands ached and burned when I held the phone. And so, like many people that are sensitive, we're all sensitive, but some of us are more sensitive than others. I kept changing phones, trying to find a phone that I could put near my head or that I could hold, because everything hurt, everything burned. When I put it against my head, it made my brain ache. And so I was on a quest to find the right phone that I could use. And I think that that's a really big thing for people, because as our phones continue to get stronger, we're not going to adapt. We're not going to adapt to an X-ray, and we're not going to adapt to our changing environment. However, we can protect ourselves, and that's how we become resilient in the world that we're in.
Okay.
Jet and I, 5 or 6 years ago, we were on an airplane in Florida, and we were stuck on the tarmac, and they said, we're going to just turn on the Wi-Fi and sit back and relax, and we'll take off here in a little while. And I was mid-sentence. I was why don't you say what happened?
He was in mid-sentence, and then all of a sudden he just stopped talking. And
I was like, I don't feel well. And I don't know how I don't feel well or why I don't feel well. And then what happened?
well, then I just looked over and he looked like he was sleeping, but he wasn't sleeping. He just was in a state of shock. He could hear everything, but his body was shutting down because of all the electrical fields and the electromagnetic fields around him. And so his body went into shock. And we knew then that this was really serious. And because he could hear everything, but he couldn't do anything about it. So that was one of the first things that was a telltale. And then what about your situation with your heart palpitations? And this is a really important story for everybody on here.
Want to go back to the airliner real quick? Think about this. When you get on an airplane, how many people have a cell phone? How many people have a laptop? How many people have an iWatch? How many airplanes have a TV screen in front of the seat? And more importantly, behind the seat where you lay your head back, because that's getting to the most important parts of the brain, the cerebellum and the occiput, which affects vision. And then you have all those people in the aircraft, but the aircraft itself has over 200 computer systems in it. And so we see get up after you've been in the air for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and look at how many people are sleeping in their seats. Are they sleeping or are they functionally impaired? So I think it was,
besides cosmic radiation and all the RF from the aircraft itself, I mean, it's a lot.
Most people don't realize that airline people that fly, as far as pilots and stewardesses, they're called radiation workers.
And frequent flyers.
And frequent flyers. But the next story that I wanted to share with you is it was about 2014 or 15, somewhere in there. I started having severe symptoms of a heart attack, and about the same age as my father had a heart attack. And being a doctor, I'm a horrible patient, right? and so I didn't go to the hospital, and I kept checking my blood pressure, and I just continued to get worse and worse. And it was about 36 hours in that my friend said, if you don't go to the hospital, we'll call an ambulance for you. So I went and checked myself into the hospital, and they ran around 4 hours of tests. They did EEGs, they did EKGs, they did a treadmill test, they did an ECG, they ran every test they could think of on me. And because I came in holding my chest thinking that I was having a heart attack, I was treated very quickly and very thoroughly. And about 4 hours later, they came back and they said, Dr. Court, we can't find anything wrong with you. You're not having a heart attack. Your heart's in perfect shape. But you have anxiety, so maybe you need to be on medications for that. And they gave me a list of things that were symptoms. This is the big part. Medications for symptoms that I was having. But here was the solution. In my bedroom, about 3 feet from the foot of my bed on the left-hand side, the same side I was having arm pain and heart pain, was a armoire, a cabinet. And in that cabinet was a desktop and a wireless printer and 2 laptops and 3 cell phones and a router. And it was 4 feet from my feet. And every night I was getting all of these electrical fields that were breaking down my body and created this situation. So we can call it a stupid tax, because
How much was that?
my stupid tax was $5,500, because that's what my deductible. I didn't meet my deductible. So
the moral of the story is you need to reduce your exposure in your bedroom, and we'll get to that. But if you then removed all of that technology out of your bedroom, and the heart palpitations went away.
Yeah, it was fine.
Okay.
And I haven't had a problem since.
Okay. So let's talk about the last one, which is a very personal one to me.
Do you want to talk about that one?
One of the first things that happens.
Because I don't think there's anything wrong with me.
Right.
I'm fine.
He's fine. He's wonderful. He's actually the most kind person in the world. But when he gets exposed, one of the things that happens is that he becomes really agitated and irritable. And so that may be one of the first telltale signs that you may see. And he actually has a foot wiggle too. There's always a physical response.
Like a tick.
He'll have that first when he gets too much exposure, like we were just at Upgrade Labs biohacking conference and we were there working, and Kaizen, our service dog, is trained for that behavior and also for his pheromones. And so to get him out. But those are the people you love. If they get exposed, they can become very agitated and then they have anxiety. And it really, you need to reduce that exposure. Okay. Sorry, he didn't know these were coming. So here we go. So tonight, we're here because of this man and his body of work, Dr. Kedar Prasad, the world's foremost radiation expert, and his accolades are second to none. And he was the world's first radiation biology PhD. And Dr. Port, do you want to go over these really quick, or do you just want to just tell him how you feel about him, and we'll go over his paper real quick?
Well, we love Dr. Prasad. He's a good friend, and we're grateful to him. So grateful to him. Do you want me to talk about 2020?
No, it's okay. So I'm just gonna go over his body of work real quick. He was also the professor at the University of Colorado School of Medicine for over 30 years, the director of vitamin and cancer research. He has authored and co-authored over 33 books, published more than 250 peer-reviewed articles in very prestigious journals such as Nature and Science. And he's continuing to publish papers, many papers the last year, and they are actually groundbreaking and novel. And the very next paper that I'm going to pull up was the one that's so important to us because it really is the greatest toxin of our lifetime. And that's not according to us, it's according to Dr. Kedar Prasad.
You know, in 2020, I had the opportunity, as COVID was breaking out in January, Dr. Prasad and I were keynotes at the Oregon Chiropractic Convention. And Jet and I have been giving him research and information that she digs up. Credit where credit is due. The information that she's digging up and looking at, and she's a constant researcher. And we've been giving him information since we met him in 2015. But in 2020, after we lectured, we gave him different information, new information, more powerful information. And he spent about 3 months reading this information and then came back and he said, I believe, realizing he's the world's first PhD radiological biologist in the world. Many of the books that I studied in radiology, he wrote, and he continues to write. His body of work is amazing with 34 textbooks. But he said this: electromagnetic fields, all of them are going to be the biggest catastrophic health crisis that our planet's ever seen. Because unlike an X-ray, this device that puts out non-ionizing radiation, not as powerful as an X-ray, but still damaging, this device and the other devices we carry on our bodies. And we carry them, and they're with us 24 hours a day. Now, when I brought cell phones into Australia, I had the only phone. I was the first in a continent. And now, 37 years later, everyone on the planet has one of these.
All right. So the solution, and I'm very grateful, and here's a copy, and I had a preprint. This is actually available for everyone on the call. This is very important. And then we have a couple guest speakers that are going to talk about a couple topics that are really important for people on here. Okay. So Dr. Prasad wrote this paper, which is the proposed implementation of concepts of ALARA, which is as low as reasonably achievable, and PAMARA, protection as much as reasonably achievable, to reduce the health risk of EMF radiation. What this really means, and he goes through, and it's very well cited, I think over 89 citations in this paper, is that in radiation, because I was a radiation worker and so were you, I had to wear a dosimeter. ALARA is really shielding, like a physical shield. And that's all we had for ionizing radiation, x-rays, CAT scans, those kinds of things. What Dr. Prasad in this paper is proposing is that we need to use shielding and reduce your exposure, which is ALARA, reducing your exposure, and to protection through micronutrients to be able to protect yourself from EMF radiation. And those two things are key. And so this product that Dr. Prasad developed came from a $24 million product of research. And that, it's right here, Dr. Court. But hang on, just before we do that, let me finish the paper real quick, okay?
Okay, sorry. I was getting excited.
He's getting really excited. This paper is everything to me because this isn't ionizing radiation. This is specifically going after EMF radiation and talks about EMF hypersensitivity. And he cites it so well. And he has done an incredible job in here providing strategies. As the first PhD radiation biologist, this is a very important paper and it's groundbreaking. So again, we have shielding, or I would just say reducing your exposure. We're going to say specifically at night because that's when we heal, and protecting your body, protection as much as reasonably achievable with his multi-micronutrient research. So if you don't have this, go ahead and take a picture of this paper. They can take a picture and look up how to get to the journal.
Okay.
All right. And before we move forward to the product, which Dr. Court's so excited to show you, and then we have Wes, we've got to get our guests on here real quick.
Yep, it might be a little more than an hour.
So we study the science of how we heal. Okay. And the natural force of healing within each of us is the greatest force in getting well. We are hardwired to heal. For everybody on here, no matter what label you've been given or what symptom, and people aren't helping you, we're hardwired to heal. But we have to know what those stressors are. And I'm just here to tell you, our electrical field is one of the biggest stressors. But the science of how we heal, number one, we must reduce our exposure. And that is Dr. Prasad's paper. Number two, nutrients and nutrient deficiencies. Dr. Prasad's body of work. And then what we've studied, wakeful activities, and it can be vagal stimulation. It can be balancing your brain waves. It can be breath work. It can be going to all these beautiful practitioners that are on here tonight. Those are awesome. And to be able to help people with those wakeful activities and your circadian rhythm. But restorative sleep is key because that's when you heal. And we must create a sleep sanctuary and reduce all exposures. Unplug your lamps.
You know, Jet, I remember something else that Hippocrates said, and that is, before someone asks you to help them get well, you must ask them what they're willing to give up that made them sick in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think that was the hardest thing in my clinic, was that people don't want to believe that the electric fields can have an effect on us. But you know, dumb way to die, shower with a hairdryer.
So DK, so getting back to that. Okay, we're going to go to that solution, but we've got a couple guests on tonight that they take care of patients and furry family members that EMF affects. And so Dr. Charles, are you available?
Oh.
Yes, I'm right here.
Dr. Charles.
So Dr. Charles, are you available?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, let me get you on the screen.
You have to unmute me though.
Okay, we can hear you, but we're going to bring you up.
And so I need to, I'm trying to get him up right here. You need to unmute Dr. Charles, if you could, please. Add spotlight. There he is.
There I am.
All right, we just got to spend time with Dr. Charles. And Dr. Charles is a neuro-optometrist extraordinaire, lectures all over the world, takes care of some of the most very fragile. Why don't you quickly share a little bit about what you do and what you've seen in the last couple decades, and with what's going on with technology with the eyes?
like the myopia conversation we had.
Right. Yeah, no, be glad to. Obviously, so my practice is about 50% pediatric and developmental vision. So I work with a lot of kids, autism spectrum, ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, genetic disorders, developmental delays, things of that nature. And the other half of my practice is acquired brain injury. So it could be concussion, stroke, it could be a traumatic brain injury, it could be immunological brain injury, which is a thing now. One of the studies I did was on something called visual snow syndrome, which is one of those neurological injuries that are really interesting. It's where you see static in your vision 24/7, and it's far more common than we even thought it to be even 3 years ago. So anyway, that's a lot what I do. Russ and I and Jetta and I had a conversation about myopia in particular, because one of the things I do in my practice also is I work to control the onset, really not so much the onset, but the progression of myopia in children, myopia being nearsightedness. Historically,
which means you
have trouble seeing far away. You can't see far away.
Can't see far away.
And I think the important thing here is to understand is that for about 700 years, so about 1970-ish, the rate of myopia in the world was pretty stagnant and pretty stable. And it started increasing in the 70s. And I think obviously in the mid 70s, you had Pong and other video games start to come out, and kids stopped going outdoors a lot. And they're staying inside to play Pong. And then later on, the onset of computers, certainly in the 80s, and development of computers, and then ultimately now we talk about cell phones, iPads, even more advanced video games. Gaming has really taken off. So interesting enough, since 1970, the rate from 1970 to 2020, the rate of myopia doubled from what it had previously been. And then from 2020 to 2050, it's supposed to double again. So obviously, myopia is really no longer thought of as a visual defect as much as it is thought of as a disease, because it fits the criteria of a disease now. And it's creating this progression that is really, really, almost pandemic or epidemic level. And we're seeing these kids develop myopia. And what's the risk of it? Well, the risk, most people think, so I won't be able to see far away, no big deal. But the risk of it long term is the development of things like glaucoma, cataracts, macular degeneration, glaucoma. All those things, the risk increase significantly as the eyeball becomes, and what nearsightedness is really is the eyeball becomes longer. So as that eyeball grows in length, those things become more at risk. To a point, even like myopic macular degeneration, it's like a 60-fold increase in the rate of myopic degeneration if you're highly nearsighted. So the idea is to slow down the progression of nearsightedness. And what has really changed? And let's go back now and let's think of what's changed. We kind of alluded to it, but what has really changed? All our near work we're doing has increased dramatically in the last 40, 50 years. The second thing that's happened is we stopped going outdoors. Mm-hmm. We already know that visible light is a major source of decreasing the progression of myopia. But if we're going outdoors less, and artificial light does not do the same thing, if we're going outdoors less, it's going to have a significant factor and effect on our ability to slow down our own progression of myopia. So obviously that is something that, I've been tuned into a pretty significant way. And then, certainly there's other things that we're seeing increase it. And obviously when Russ was talking about things like his symptoms from EMR, electromagnetic radiation, a lot of those, if you look at them carefully, a lot of them mimic neurologic injury. Okay.
Right.
I mean, the poor sleep, the brain fog, all those things are common components that we see with neurologic injury. So as part of our injury related to EMF, certainly, part of it's related to doing extreme amount of near work. And the thing we have to do is figure out a way to decrease that input, and also decrease our children from getting more myopic. So what are some of the things we can do? First thing is get your child outdoors. Number one, get them away from the computer screens, get them away from the EMFs. That's the first thing we need to do, because obviously there's a cause-effect relationship there. And when you're on your screen, we always joke about what we call the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, look at 20 feet for 20 seconds. And basically what that means is every 20 minutes, you need to look up from the screen, look out the window, look way across, and just kind of relax your eyes for 20 seconds or a minute, and then go back to what you were doing. Because we understand, it's not so easy. A lot of these kids are doing school online. A lot of workers are working from home now, and they're on computers all day. So the rule isn't not only for kids, it's for adults too. Give yourself that 20-second break every 20 minutes and look out across the room. Look out the window. It's just something that can be very helpful for you. I don't want to take any more of your time, so I'll leave it at that.
No,
any questions?
Real quick, what do you think? Like morning, like nature. I mean, we love nature and getting outside in nature, and
that morning light as the sun's coming up, with just no glasses, no hat, no shirt, and just.
What do you think about that, Dr. Charles?
I don't have any objection to it. I mean, certainly, I think getting outdoors, getting in nature is a wonderful thing to do, as long as you're not too allergic. Because we know people here in Texas get very allergic to things, so you have to watch out for that too.
I think there must be a big myopic issue in Dallas, because drivers cannot see past their car. They have huge. They're like the worst drivers ever. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, Dr. I wanted, because you are bringing a neuroinflammation package into your office, and we're working on that. We've been talking about this for many years, but the data, and because Dr. Charles is not only a great clinician, he has published research because he works with a population of people that no one helps. And so we're really grateful that you are on the call tonight to share from your perspective over time that we're seeing this myopia and some strategies that, from your opinion, to be able to help, which I think is so important.
Do you want me to discuss the neuroinflammation package at all, or talk about it briefly?
Yes.
No, we better not, because we got it.
I got that look. But how much do you like the microdaily and the children's gummies for your patients?
We like it a lot. I mean, obviously that's the core of our neuroinflammation package, and then we've added some other pieces to it that are in the product line that really go well with it. So some of the what do they call, the additive products? Really, the boosts. Yeah, a couple of the boosts. Obviously, we know sleep is a big thing, so sleep becomes a factor. When we're talking about the brain boost also, and the CBD, all those things are anti-inflammatory.
And guess what? Brain boost is the special of the month. So people that get a Core 4, they get a free brain boost, and I think it might be the special also for the month. So I love brain boost.
It has a lot of great ingredients in it. It has turmeric. It has resveratrol in it, which comes from grapes. All those are really major antioxidant, anti-inflammatory tools in our toolbox. So to me, those are some huge products that can really help. And I'll let Russ talk more about the CBD, because I've been recommending CBD to patients for a long time, but you just never know what the effects are going to be. But because of the way this CBD is formulated, it makes it much more interesting, because I have a lot of people who work for the government. If they get drug tested, it could be a big problem. And because this is such a refined CBD, it becomes really important.
Right. Yeah. CBD isolate.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got a positive test.
Okay. Dr. Charles, thank you for hopping on. I know you're super busy, and it was great seeing you this last week at that biohacking conference.
And I'm sorry I'm not going flying with you. I'm in Wyoming now, so you're going to have to fly to me, and then we'll go flying.
Sounds good. Deal.
Thanks,
All right.
Dr.
Thank you,
Charles.
Dr.
We
Charles.
appreciate you.
Take care.
Much.
Bye-bye.
Well,
All right.
whew, that was so
I
good.
know it was really good. Our other guests couldn't get on, but I'm very sad.
Oh.
But what I'm going to say is let's not forget about our pets. Not only is disease on the rise, all diseases, but our pets, and some of the pets are very sensitive to EMF. And so what we're seeing is a lot of behavioral issues. And so, oh, Mary Sunshine is here. So Mary, let me get you up here.
Yay.
So where are you, Miss Mary?
So blessed to meet Mary Sunshine. We
Hey.
were there.
Hang on, I got to find you, girl. Okay, Sunshine's phone. Okay, add spotlight. Here she is.
Hey,
Hey guys.
so good to see you. Everyone, Mary Sunshine.
Mary Sunshine. So Mary
We just
Sunshine.
had another storm.
Oh my goodness. We just left Mary's in Tyler, Texas. So we just arrived home
3 hours ago.
33 hours ago. We were just with Mary. Mary is an incredible healer, reflexologist, and writing a pet reflexology course.
Reiki master.
I mean, go ahead.
Well, she's a little busy. We were with her when she finished her bachelor's. We got to watch her in graduation. She's working on her master's and her PhD in Quantum University. She's a Reiki master, reflexologist, acupressurist, dog whisperer. The list goes on. Tell us more.
Hang on, but we're going to focus on pets, okay? And the reason why, Mary, is that our pets are never out of Wi-Fi. And you have your two little fur babies, which are Cocodine and Christopher, and we have our Kaizen. But people love their pets, and they're seeing behavioral issues, right? Behavioral issues. Why are they not minding? But worse than that, when we go to the vets, we're seeing diseases and a lot of cancer. And so simple strategies, Mary, explain to them what you've seen, like maybe with your patients and with pets, and how maybe the pet reflexology course and the micronutrient could help them.
Well, all the illnesses are on the rise. But let's bring that into where the pet is out in nature. So it's out in the wild. We domesticated them, right? So their natural survival mode is to hide their pain and hide their weakness. Otherwise, they're going to get taken out, right? So they hide that. Well, you get up in the morning, you get ready, and you're like, okay, I left water, I left food, closed doors if you don't want them in the other room. But did you unplug the Wi-Fi?
Mm-mm.
No. I notice a difference in mine if I leave for work and don't unplug it. They're very lethargic when I get home. Usually they're like right at the door, and maybe they're not as quick to do that. Or if I don't turn it off at night when we go to bed, Chris, not so much Cocaine, but Chris, he likes to be the guard dog. He likes to make sure mom's okay. So he's out near the door that we enter in, and that's where the Wi-Fi is. That's where the router is. And where's his bed? Right underneath it. So if mom doesn't turn it off in the morning, I'm like, come on, you got to get up. Let's go outside and go potty. And he's slow to move. But yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that it might, I see a lot of people who are having trouble with their animals, like peeing in their house.
And behavior issues.
Behavior, almost like, you know what? I'm mad at you, and this is how I'm going to show you I'm mad at you. And they pee on things. Do you ever see that?
I do, my own house.
Tell us more.
Yeah, they'll go to two places. One in my office on the rug in front of my desk, or in front of my shower on the rug.
Both places that get your attention.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they're trying to say, hey, mom, there's a lot of electric fields here. They're just, that's
Yeah.
their response because they don't have words.
So
Yeah.
Miss Mary's writing, she's finishing up a pet reflexology course. We're going to be in Chino Hills, California at our nonprofit Rebel Ranch, where Kaizen was trained as a service dog. They also have horses. So we'll all be there educating there on strategies to help with stress. But the nutrients, there they are. There's Cocodine. We all use the purple formula that Dr. Prasad made for pets to protect them. And you can use the EMF one, but I think that we prefer the purple one. And but I think it's really important for people to understand is that the pets are never out of Wi-Fi. Some people are like, oh, I leave my smart TV on because my dog's entertained. They're exposed all the time. And so I just want you to know, if they just flip those off, especially at night, okay, reducing your exposure, which is what Dr. Prasad said, reduce your exposure first, okay, and then nutrients. I know that a lot of dogs' behaviors would be much better, Mary, and I know that the course that you're going to be teaching on digital hygiene and that, but I think this fact of what we just summarized with Dr. Prasad's paper, reducing your exposure and then protection with micronutrients can really help them have a higher quality of life. But first of all, they're going to see symptoms of behavior, like issues.
Well, I was thinking about it today about the call, and I was kind of going through the boys' behavior. And before you and Dr. Court said, unplug that Wi-Fi when you go to bed. And then I said, oh, I'm going to unplug it when I go to work, blah, blah, blah. Chris used to shake.
Like,
Would have these shaking episodes. And I thought he was scared. I thought something scared him. Or maybe he's cold. But he would have these shaking episodes. Now, it wasn't like a seizure, but he was just shaking. Like if you pick up your pet, especially like after they've had a bath and they're still a little bit wet and they shake a little, that's what it was like. And when I was thinking about the call today, I remembered he doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, he didn't do it when we were there. I think it's important, not only unplugging the Wi-Fi, but also unplugging electronics in the region. So, for instance, we have some ring lights and things like that, and things are plugged in right now. Normally when I do these, I have my computer unplugged, but it's important to remember to unplug things that don't need to be plugged in.
Because it's no course of current.
And this is true in your own bedroom, folks. So when you lay down, if you have a lamp next to your head.
A sleep sync, we heal. Let's do this because we have to wrap up. We heal at night. Okay, that's when we heal. And specifically during slow wave sleep, that's when we heal. So it's really important that we reduce the stressors, like in our room, so we have a sleep sanctuary, a cool, dark room. Temperature is a huge factor in us getting to that slow wave sleep. So what are some strategies you would tell them to make a sleep sanctuary for you and your furry family member?
Well, I think that the most important thing is unplug the router at night. Unplug it. The next thing is, if you have a lamp next to your head on either side of the bed, you should unplug that. Now, some people have issues with sleep apnea and they have a CPAP. And they always ask, well, what do I do? How do I take care of that? We can run an extension cord out into the hall and have the CPAP plugged into that, but try and have it as far away from your head as you can. In addition to that,
cell phones out of the room.
Cell phones need to be charged as far away as possible. A lot of people say, well, I need that for my alarm clock, or I need it for the sound to help me get to sleep. Remember what I said. Before you ask me to help you, what are you willing to give up that's making you sick in the first place? So the cell phone has to be at the other end of the house. What's that, Mary?
The dogs sleep in the room now. I used to leave my bedroom door open, but now I leave them in my room because I know it's a sleep sanctuary.
Right.
And by the way, you can get a $5 battery operated alarm clock at Walmart for $4.99.
I know, I was just going to say that.
Those are really
simple things.
Those are really, really great strategies. So again, if you have a pet and you want to know more, Miss Mary is going to be teaching this pet reflexology course, and including digital wellness and nutrients and guiding on being able to help your pet. And I want you to know we need to think about them too, because they're always surrounded by this Wi-Fi.
Well, don't we have something we're offering people that are on the call as far as like calling back?
Well, no, we don't have anything like that, because that's not what this is about. This is about awareness, and not just about for people, but for our pets. And I wanted Mary on because she's going to be there. She's going to see massive veterans and first responders that have therapy dogs and service dogs, and they're going to come back in and try to get retrained, because stress always goes down leash or lead to the horse or the dog. And so they're coming in, why is my dog not behaving? And so a lot of things we need to talk about. Can we reduce the stressors, which is reducing your exposure, like Dr. Prasad's paper, reduce your exposure, and then protection as much as reasonably achievable through the micronutrient for both the animals and for us, the handler. Right, Mary?
Yes, because they take on our stress as well.
They do. So it goes both. It's bidirectional.
And so the keys again are, number one,
reduce your exposure.
Unplug things in your home, folks.
At night.
At night.
Sleep sanctuary.
But you know what? If it doesn't need to be plugged in during the day, why not leave it unplugged? You know, it doesn't. You make your coffee, unplug the coffee pot. It doesn't need to be plugged in. Electrical fields will affect us. And the more electrical fields there are, the more people are going to be affected. Remember, back in '87, there were no cell phones. Now, almost everybody on the planet has one or two. So there's a lot more bees in the room. The next one is
nutrients.
Nutrients. Do you know that we have the most amazing nutrients on the planet? You know that this and the children's formula are actually to help protect you from EMF. It's incredible. And
it's safe. It's
safe. And there's nothing like it. And, you know, when we're driving, I get affected. And Jet makes me, we drove from Texas, makes me hydro so that I can continue to drive. So the core 4 plus sleep is really, really critical, the sleep boost. And also when we talked about the anxiety, I like to call them ugly mood swings. Those are really important to have CBD for ugly mood swings. What else, Jet?
Well, I want to wrap up because we've gone a little bit over, and I hope it's been helpful for everybody to just take a step back. So if I think the first thing you would see with either your pet or a family member or a coworker, if they're normally like really pretty kind, if they start getting really agitated or you're not really understanding what's going on, you could be able to okay. Oh my goodness. So, okay, Dr. Court. So with Kaizen, I totally lost my train of thought.
He's part cat. He's purring.
Okay, so.
Okay, he's going to bark because I'm going to let him down. And he doesn't really want down so hot. See, I told you, it sounds so ferocious.
Reduce your exposure. Nutrients, because nutrient deficiencies cause a lot of dis-ease. And Dr. Prasad's research and body of work on this micro daily EMF and our children's gummy are life-changing. Thank you, Miss Mary. Appreciate you. And then I'll keep you on.
You're welcome.
Okay. And then the nutrients, the core 4, our probiotic boost, our omega-3 and our collagen, our core products are incredible. And they are peer reviewed to reduce your blood, to reduce and balance your prevention of diabetes and for the treatment of diabetes, which is incredible. But I want to, and then wakeful activities. Number 3 is wakeful activities. That would be
get out and exercise.
Get out, like Dr. Charles said, get out in nature. Nature is the greatest healer. Get outside, move, breath work. We do very precise vagal stimulation. We do balancing your brain waves. There's lots of things. People on here are hydrocodone therapists, and there are different types of therapists, and we thank each one of you. Reflexology on here. Those wakeful activities are very important, but the last one is restorative sleep. And restorative sleep is when we heal. And so we're going to close with this. It's really important. And one of the most important things about that, there's a lot of confusion about REM, non-REM, and all of that. But the bottom line is that in order to get to slow wave sleep, which is non-REM 3-4, that's when we heal. It's all based on temperature. Our brain and our core has to cool down 2 to 3 degrees. So you have to think about, what am I doing to create that core to be hot? Okay. And that could be eating late. It could be EMF. It could be inflammation, neuroinflammation. But one of the most important things, because it's temperature related, and as a biochemist, this is really biochemistry related, is temperature as a variable. And our sleep boost, actually, and I'll do a deeper dive on another call, sleep boost and the 3 milligrams of melatonin in this, melatonin is one of the most important factors for thermal regulation. And so many people don't have enough melatonin. They're not making the tryptophan in their gut, which he also put in here. And so the 3 milligrams, more is not necessarily better, but the 3 milligrams, that's why people, with this product, they really are, one and two have insomnia right now, that they can be able to get restorative sleep and get there, because this is actually helping you cool your core, cool down, and your brain cool down, and then you're not groggy. So this is really important for temperature. Also, you need to sleep in a cool room. It's a cool, dark room. You need to make it a sleep sanctuary. And I hope that was one of the most important things about when we heal is at night. So we've got to reduce all exposures in there. We don't need to, I'm just going to be honest, we don't need to have anything in there or anything on at night. We just really need to set ourselves up to optimize how we heal.
There are challenges though. So like when you look at this thing lasting at night, it inhibits your brain from releasing melatonin. So try and put this down an hour or two before you go to bed. I know it's difficult. It's difficult for us. But it's try. These are the things. No,
like Dr. Prasad, these are behaviors, and they really do make a big difference because we measure sleep. And we love the sleep product. And now we can add that in for those people that have insomnia. It's life changing. And some people that have pain. So I want to say this about pain. Another reason why people can't sleep is because they're in pain. We need to have the endocannabinoid network optimized. And so we can not only take the omega-3s, but the CBD, but you need to take at least 50 milligrams, which is 2 capsules.
Don't do one. Why?
Okay. Because it actually has more of an awakening type of metabolic pathway. When you take at least 50 milligrams, it will help optimize the endocannabinoid system and help with sleep and reduce pain. And so those two together are a great combination. If somebody is in pain, it's very safe for you to be able to use. It's a CBD isolate. And those two together, I think, are, for me, a game changer when it comes to restorative sleep, because we measure this. I feel very refreshed. I've never recommended any over-the-counter supplementation of any kind for sleep until this product. It's amazing. And measurable outcomes. People are getting more slow wave sleep when you heal, when they take these products.
When I take 2 CBD and 1 sleep, it's all good. When I take 2 CBD and 2 sleep,
it's just too much.
Oh, I'm just dragging.
Well, I just want to say this: more's not better. More's not better. Start with that. And I think we need to wrap up because we were really long tonight.
One other thing, and this is difficult when we were saying, our country's in a heat wave. There are some extraordinary temperatures happening across the country, and we know because we just rode through it. Ceiling fans, they also put out electric fields, and usually they're right above us, and people have fans blowing on us, and the motor puts out a ton of electromagnetic fields.
It's Gauss. Mm-hmm.
It's Gauss electricity. What's a solution? Ice packs. Put an ice pack in your bed, at your feet, behind the knees. These are things that we can do. A cool washcloth on your chest. And I know it's
no,
hot.
it's really easy. It's a shower before bed. So we're gonna wrap up. So the strategies are a cool, dark room. Your core and your head have to be cooled down 2 to 3 degrees to get to that healing sleep, to get to that slow wave sleep, non-REM 3-4. So we have to have strategies for that by reducing all those exposures. It will, because we measure temperature at night. We know if you reduce those things, it will help bring your core temperature down. So with that, you want to go ahead and wish everybody a good night?
I do want to wish everybody a good night. This was a lot of fun. We went over. Sorry about that. But if you loved it, let us know so that we can do more of these, because this was a blast.
It was. And you can
She's so smart.
We can. And thank you, Dr. Charles and Mary, for getting on. And don't forget about those children, and he's such a gift for Dr. Charles for sharing, and for Mary and the work she does, and to talk about pets. But thank you, everyone, for being on. And we'll see you later in the month on the Optimal Longevity Series.
The key, be resilient.
Resilient health.
Resilient health.
Okay.
Thank you. Good
Be
night,
well,
everyone.
everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
Good night.
job.
Good night.
Wonderful.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent information.